Good morning, everyone. And as always, thank you for taking the time out of your day to engage with us. My name is Katie Town, Regional Marketing Manager for AGCO. Hope everyone is safe and healthy as we get through these crazy times together, and wishing everyone a safe holiday weekend ahead. We have been working with AGCO Direct for over 10 years now. I know that you have heard us on what feels like repeat for a number of years on the importance of your presence in the digital space. One of the most exciting things about this strange year we call 2020 is that we are able to state that our dealer network, who is working with AGCO Direct, is putting digital efforts forward more than any other form of media. Digital spend has never outpaced print prior to this year. That is a really big deal. So thank you for putting your trust in us. It is exciting to watch. If you were on our COVID-19 webinar, you heard me mention that we have not pulled back our digital efforts corporately either, and we are continuing to see unprecedented numbers of leads being passed to your dealerships. In the past 7 days, over 350 leads worth well over $4 million have been passed on. So please keep actioning these and updating the status of those in your lead counters. Today, you will hear from Mariah Madsen and Kyle Watkins talking about the media mix. As you know, in marketing, we have different levers we can pull based upon the objectives of your campaign. Is your goal to drive awareness of your dealership? Maybe it is to increase your Facebook followers and, of course, to drive leads to your salespeople. The recommended tactics are based upon what exactly you are trying to accomplish and ensure the calls to action are appropriate and the message is consistent throughout your campaign. So with that, I will turn it over to Mariah to get us started.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Katie. As Katie mentioned, we're going to go through a bit of a recap. We're going to talk about what we should do next, how to define your campaign, and then we're going to walk through 4 actual scenarios with sample budgets. And then Kai is going to touch on some of the dealer trends we're seeing with engagement from a traditional media and a digital space. And if you have questions along the way, please type them in the side bar and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. So as Katie had mentioned, we've spent a lot of time talking about and diving deep into digital media and what our options are, how can we target, how do we track that, and what does reporting look like. And we've talked at a high level and at a very granular level about all of these things. So today, instead of laying out the options, we're actually going to talk through how to make decisions when you're faced with dealership, if your dealership needs awareness, for example. So where do we start? So first, identify your goals. What are you trying to accomplish? What does success look like? How are you going to measure that? Is it traffic to your dealership? Usually, of course, ultimately it's sales, but there's also things in between there that are really important measures of success. So we're going to take a closer look at 4 different scenarios in the upcoming slides to map back to your goals, success, and how to measure. So first, let's define the campaign. Who are you trying to reach? What is your audience? Is it farmers? Is it homes with acreage? Is it the local counties? Is it your PAR? Like, who is it you're trying to reach? And be very specific about who that is. And then what's your goal? Usually, of course, ultimately goal is sales. But if you're trying to get awareness for your dealership, those impressions and the reach is also really important. And then a big part of what drives those tactics is, what is your budget? We understand working with dealers that not everyone has an unlimited budget, and we want to make sure that we're maximizing that budget in your reach and in the conversions, what we're wanting people to do. When will your campaign start and how long will it run? Timing, as we know, is very important. We want to make sure it's aligning with sales cycle if we're running a promotion. And then we want to make sure it's running long enough that people have the opportunity to hear it with some frequency so it sticks and stays top of mind. So the three, actually four, I guess we forgot one, scenarios we're going to run through is dealership awareness, a sales promotion, lead gen, and then we're also going to touch on some employee recruitment, as those are four of the most asked about scenarios when we're working with dealers. And as we talk through the different media options that map back to these scenarios, I think there's some table stakes that I'm not going to touch on for every scenario, but they're really important. And I'm sure you've heard us talk about this before when we're running campaigns with dealers or with you. Content is super important, making sure that if you're running paid search, for example, those keywords that we're bidding on are showing up on your website. So there's relevancy for that user. And so they're finding that information very quickly. And then organic social, as paid Facebook ads and paid Instagram are becoming an increasingly big part of media plans. We want to make sure that you've used your social platforms to humanize your brand, and it's not all just about sales and promotion. And, you know, I know that we have, with AGCO Direct, several different paths, I guess you can sign up for, or content paths you can sign up for. So please be taking advantage of those, because it's really important that your social platform really reflects your dealership. Paid search is also one of those that is a table stake, in my opinion. If you're not doing anything, you should really be doing paid search. Paid search is one of those mediums or tactics that they're generally further down the funnel. So if they're actively looking for you, you really want to make sure that you're capitalizing on that. So in all of these scenarios that I'm going to talk through, both of these things are very important to make sure that you're doing. And I'm not going to touch on those in every scenario. So dealership awareness. So in this scenario, we are going to target farmers. We're going to target farmers within 40 miles of your dealership, and it's going to run for 3 months. And our total budget for this campaign is $6,000. So when you're wanting to build awareness, most media tactics are appropriate. All of them are reaching potential users. It's looking at each of them and deciding what is available, what's your cost, what's the CPMs, what is the reach of each of those mediums, and then what's the deadline, because sometimes that can really dictate what you're able to turn around and how quickly. So if we think about dealership awareness, you know, there's lots of options. Newspaper, for example. If you have a weekly newspaper in your town, often those skew a little bit younger. They have a little bit more mass reach. Newspapers in general allow you to have kind of a longer, maybe more complicated message. You're able to put your address in there. You're able to put a picture maybe of your storefront, so people start to get familiar with what your dealership looks like and where it's located. However, on the con side of newspapers, those daily newspapers can be expensive, and they also tend to skew older. So newspaper circulations from a daily perspective are certainly declining. So you really want to weigh the cost of what those newspaper ads are with that overall budget. And then magazines, also another great way to drive awareness. However, lead times are often really far in advance. And so the timeliness doesn't always make sense. And there also may not be magazines in your area that are targeted enough or make sense. Radio. Radio is a great way to reach in a high frequency way. So radio you can target by format. So for example, reaching sports or country or pop. However, it doesn't allow you to get any more granular than that. You can target just adults 25-54, for example, on a country station. But other than that, it doesn't allow you to get too specific. but it also provides a nice mass reach. Depending on how many stations are available in your market, it may be a great way for your dealership awareness. Again, on the flip side of that, targeting gets tricky, and there tends to be a lot of waste. Television is the same thing. Television can be very expensive and you're not able to target. However, what it does allow you to do is have that visual that really no other medium outside of video, digital video, to see and interact with what your dealership looks like, where it's located, and give it a little bit more personality. But it is very expensive. The cost per thousands, or the cost per points as it's often purchased by, can be outside of a lot of dealers' budgets. And then when you get into the digital tactics, as we have talked about in several other presentations, digital, of course, you can track so much more. There's, conversions, impressions, clicks, engagement. It just gives you the ability to be very specific in reporting back those results. Unlike the traditional media, where generally it is measured by just the impressions. So as we look at digital radio, the Spotifys and the Pandoras of the world, they have, Pandora specifically has started a self-service option. So you no longer have to reach the minimums. However, you then also sacrifice the targeting options. You don't get to be as specific in targeting when you look at a lower budget. So it's a lot like regular radio, where you can target by very high-level demographic information. But if you're willing to meet the minimums on a Pandora or a Spotify, that opens up the targeting to be a little bit more granular. Digital video has a lot of the same pros as television, except it's a lot more affordable. The cost per thousands are nearly not as expensive, and it also allows you to target in a way that you can't on television. And a lot like television, we look at performance based on views. So the same kind of positive brand interaction on TV is the same thing that we look at from a digital video perspective. Online display, also a lot of dealers are running online display. The targeting that we're able to do down to farmers within that 40-mile radius of the dealership is very specific, and we see a lot of great success with that. Scalability can sometimes be an issue with online display, because sometimes that 40-mile radius, there's just not a lot of people. And then finally, paid social. And again, I think a lot of dealers are taking advantage of paid social, and it's very affordable, and the targeting can be very granular and very specific. So it's a great way for dealerships to get awareness affordably. The last one that I also want to mention is direct mail. Direct mail is, again, one of those tactics that a lot of dealers take advantage of, and we can target and purchase lists or use the prospect database to identify those people that we want to target and mail to. So it allows for a little bit more segmentation than some of the other traditional tactics. So now you have all of those media options to consider. What should you be looking at? How should you look at what is better, or what makes more sense for your dealership awareness? And again, we've just gone over what's available, but the next thing to look at is what's the cost. And I always try to get down the cost to an apples-to-apples comparison. So a lot of times it's a cost per thousand. So how much does it cost to reach 1,000 people? And then compare that to each of the mediums. That's a great way to start to look at each one, again, apples to apples. And then what's your reach? How many people is each of those medium actually able to reach? So for example, television is you're only going to be able to say, I can reach adults 25-54 in the television viewing area. But on online display, I'm able to say, okay, what is my potential reach for farmers within 40-mile radius of that dealership? So again, the targeting and the efficiency definitely is one of those factors you want to consider when deciding which mediums make the most sense. And then deadlines. I touched on this before. Magazines tend to have a very early deadline, and so the turnaround time doesn't allow you to be very quick. On the flip side of that, most digital tactics can be turned around within 24 to 48 hours. Newspapers, also about a week is a good lead time. Radio can also be turned around in about 24 to 48 hours. So how quickly do you want to be up and running? And then what assets do you have available? So all things that you should use to consider when thinking about dealership awareness. So the recommended plan that we see most dealers have success with and that we often will recommend is a mix of traditional and digital tactics. We find when you can run a mix of both of those, you have the most success. So in this case, we're recommending your weekly newspaper, direct mail, online display, and paid social. So again, a nice mix of broad awareness tactics in your newspaper and display, and then more specific targeted with your direct mail and paid social. And again, don't forget, paid search should also be part of this. Okay, so that is the plan that you execute for the next 3 months with your $6,000 budget. And so now I want to talk a little bit about how do we define success and what are the measurements we should look at. With dealership awareness, the awareness is really about how many people are you reaching and how often. So looking at the total number of impressions is really important. How many opportunities did your audience have to see your message? And then from there, what are the engagements and clicks on the digital portion of your buy? How many people went to the website? How many clicks on the ads did you receive? And then a step further than that, anytime you run awareness with some traditional media, you should always see an increase in branded searches. So people actually typing in your name into their Google search bar and getting to your website. Generally, we say when we run a combination of tactics, you can see anywhere between a 15 to 20% increase in branded searches, which is telling you your tactics are working, you're top of mind, and people know to look for you. And you can also look at your website visitors. When you're running a campaign of any kind, you should see an increase in the traffic you're driving to your site. And then increased store traffic and calls. This, of course, is more anecdotal than we have a specific measure for it. But ultimately, we're hoping that you see more people coming into your store because, again, people are more aware of your location and that you're there. Here is a couple of samples, creatives that we did for Altifer for them introducing the Fendt line. So the next scenario I want to talk through is a promotion. So, for example, this could be a percentage off parts. It could be 0% financing. It could be no money down. So it's any kind of sales promotion. So in this scenario, we are targeting a cattle rancher within the dealership's PAR. It's going to run 1 month, and we have a $3,000 budget. So when you think about what media options there are to consider, and it is only 1 month, you want to make sure that timeliness and we can gather large amounts of frequency of your message in that 1 month and create some urgency and immediacy. So things to consider before you choose your mediums or as you're choosing your mediums is what kind of sale is it? What kind of sale is it? Again, I've outlined a couple of options. What's available? What's our call to action? Do we want them to come into the store? Do we want them to call us? Do we want them to fill out a form? What is that call to action? And then again, as you're looking through those media options, what are the costs and the CPMs to get as much reach and frequency as we can in that short 1 month window? And deadlines plays a huge role in this because we want to be able to turn it around very quickly. So in this case, we're looking at newspaper, direct mail, online display, and paid social. Again, a mix of those traditional tactics with those digital tactics to make a very well-rounded plan and maximize that reach and frequency. One of the other medium options that I will often recommend, if it makes sense in your market, is radio. And because of the budget, we didn't include radio here. However, radio is one of those mediums that helps create immediacy and urgency. So it is also a good alternative for when you're doing sales promotion. Okay, so as we look at defining success of promotion, it's a lot of the same thing. So again, we want to look at that baseline number of total impressions. How many people had the opportunity to see our message and how often? That's very important when we have such a small window of time to promote this sale. What were the engagements and clicks on our digital tactics? How many people did we get to the website to learn more about what the sale is and to understand some of the specifics about it? And again, increased store traffic and calls, and ultimately sales. With most of the promotions we're running being sales orientated, it's really important to go back and look and match those sales to that time period or right after that time period when that campaign was running. This campaign here that we have for Ohio Ag is, I believe it just wrapped up, and we saw 11 sales in the first month of this campaign. So really successful when they've used the right mix of mediums to maximize that reach. Lead gen. So this scenario, we're looking at homes with acreage or a rural lifestyle audience. We're going to target 2 counties within the dealership PAR. It's going to run for 2 weeks, and we have a $2,500 media budget. So with lead gen, of course, we want to get them to fill out a form. We want their information. So that starts to limit the media options to consider because often the ask to go from a traditional message or tactic to online is often a big ask. We don't see a lot of conversions that way. So sticking to the digital options makes more sense when we're asking them to actually fill something out. And so things to consider, what are you requiring for information? Generally, we find the least amount of information, the better. Name, email, phone number is often, the bare minimum. I know from a corporate perspective, the digital that we're currently running, we get a little bit more specific into, timing of their next sale and things like that. So just be thinking about what are the things you want to learn from that person. And then again, costs and cost per thousands, and then the audience size. Because as you look at 2 counties, that's not a lot. So again, what are those mediums that make the most sense and can maximize the reach to that specific audience in those 2 counties? So in this case, we're recommending paid search and online display, paid social and online display. And again, paid search plays a real large role in lead gen as well. Again, reaching those people that are already looking for you. So here, again, a lot of the same things. I feel like a broken record, but looking at impressions, those engagements and clicks and those website visitors are really important, because with lead gen, with the ultimate goal of that immediate lead or that immediate form fill, you're able to make a lot of changes in real time. If people aren't filling out that form, they're getting to the page, whether it's on your website or it's a Facebook lead gen ad, and they're not filling it out. You can make very quick changes to potentially that lead gen form. Is it too long? Are we asking too many questions? And if you've identified that that's not the issue, then perhaps we need to relook at our targeting. So there's lots of immediate things you can do from a lead gen perspective that can make sure that we are maximizing that budget and getting the most leads that we can. Here is a campaign that is a couple of different lead gen ads that we've been running. And then we've got some stats of that cost per lead down in the lower left-hand corner. One of the things, too, as a little bit of a sidebar, that we're seeing in this kind of new world with the COVID-19 is the amount of people that are online has driven up the supply of Facebook in particular, impressions. So the cost per lead that we're seeing from a corporate side has gone from, around $8 to $10 a lead down to right now it's like cents on a dollar. So, things to think about as your dealerships are looking to drive those leads. And then the last one is employee recruitment. This was really something that I know that has been a hot topic with dealerships as they're looking to recruit different positions. So you've probably heard us talk about this already, but this campaign is looking at diesel mechanics in a 50-mile radius for 1 month with a $2,000 budget. We have found with working with dealers as well as other clients that typically how we've done employee recruitment is just not working. The days of running ads in the newspaper are really over. We've also, found that running Facebook job postings doesn't always lead to the best candidates. So we've taken a bit of a different approach. So really think about what have you done prior in your recruitment efforts and what tools do you have in place. So for example, if you do put job postings on your Facebook page, will there be someone to grab those and reach out to those people that are applying in a timely manner? And then what other similar businesses have the employees you're looking for, and where are they located? And how quickly do you need to hire? And then the biggest thing too is how easy is it to apply? Do you have a section on your website with an application that's easily to access and easy to fill out? Or are the instructions of what you want them to do to apply easy to find and understand? So again, as we've been doing more of this employee recruitment, we have really found that digital is the way to really maximize that budget, as well as maximize the number of qualified candidates, because that's really the big thing, is making sure that it's not just the number of applications, but it's truly that they are qualified. And so running the digital tactics and those immediate calls to action and them having the ability to click and apply or click and call is really important. So for this, we recommend online display. In this case, we would recommend geofencing, maybe some of those businesses that have similar positions open, as well as paid social media. And paid search plays a very important role into running a successful employee recruitment campaign. And here is a campaign that we ran for AgriService, and one of the pieces of feedback that we got from them is traffic to their website or their careers page doubled during this campaign. So again, really looking from a success perspective, all of the same things you would with other campaigns, the impressions, the clicks, the website visitors, how many people have asked questions or inquired, and then how many applications that you received, and then ultimately how many people did you hire, because that is, of course, the ultimate measurement of your success of your recruitment campaign.
Thank you, Mariah. That was really good information, and I think one of the trends that you saw throughout those 4 different scenarios is the importance of digital marketing in all of the campaigns. It used to be tradition, or awareness was very much, let's do TV and radio and print, and now there's a role for digital regardless of the campaign you're looking at. And when we look at dealer trends and how you guys have been spending your dollars and leveraging your co-op dollars over the years, it's been really exciting to see how digital marketing has grown and how it's been embraced, and the success that we've seen with that digital marketing at the dealer level and at the national level. So wanted to just share with you guys what these trends are looking like. Digital marketing is now the most utilized media type across the board for dealers, which is really exciting to see. We've worked very hard to get there over the last many years, and as new technologies come out and it becomes more, it becomes easier to execute, and people are engaging more, you guys have really embraced it, and that's so exciting to see. So what we're looking at here is the spend, and this is all based on your co-op claims that get submitted. So everything that you execute through AGCO Direct and on your own through April of this year. So we're looking at 2020 year to date. Digital marketing is leading the way, which is super exciting, and then it does go into your traditional, which we never want those to go away. We don't expect them to go away, but we're super excited to have digital leading the charge. I looked at same numbers from 12 months ago. Digital was the 4th most utilized type, so just in the last 12 months, there's been significant growth. I know when we look at what dealers are engaging with here, paid search, like Mariah had said, the expectation is that table stakes, and we're seeing that. Like most dealers are running paid search campaigns at least during the heavy seasons throughout the year. So that's been really encouraging. And then paid social is another area where we see just a tremendous amount of engagement and some really strong results. If you think back to that lead gen campaign that Mariah walked you through, for an example, that's a campaign we're running in the Southeast with Adrian and all of his dealers down there, and we had 93 leads come in just over the course of the weekend. So these campaigns work, and when you get to see those results and you see how those customers come in and kind of work their way through the funnel down to the sale, that's just proof that it works. And with digital, it's got a pretty low cost barrier to get through. So very exciting to see that. I did also break it down a little bit further and looked at how you guys are spending your dollars by brand, looking at the media type. Again, not surprised here that Massey Ferguson really leads the charge with digital marketing. A lot of that is because when you look at rural lifestyle, they're more consumer-based. They behave a little bit differently. So a lot of those digital activities worked more effectively earlier on. So there's been higher engagement with digital in Massey Ferguson there. What is also exciting to see, though, is digital is working its way towards the forefront when we look at fence and application, and even on the part side. So they're not in the lead there yet, and maybe it doesn't make sense for digital to be the top media mix there yet, but it's good to see that it is a strong part of your guys' media plans as you are building those out. So that's what we're looking like there. And then also taking a look from another approach, looking district by district. When we look at the Central District, we've seen a lot more engagement with many dealers in the Central District. There's been some big pushes there, and a lot of them are running digital campaigns, so we're seeing great results there. And then again, all the other districts are certainly doing their part, and they've got strong media mixes. And I think, too, what's good is if we looked at this 2 years ago, we would have seen Tractor House with the lion's share, and then probably events, and then everything else pretty low, or heavy print, and then everything drops off. And when you look at this, you've got a nice mix. I think the Northeast is probably a really good example where you've got pretty flat in a lot of cases. So people are not just sticking to their regular radio and newspaper buys that they've been doing for 10 years. They're mixing it up. So this is all looking really good. So we're excited to see all this. But again, encourage you to, if you haven't tried anything with digital marketing yet, reach out to the team here. There's a lot of different tools and resources for you that are going to help you with your media planning. So one that's still available is the MVP, which is the Marketing Value Program. That if you haven't signed up for it yet, but you're interested in it, you can still enroll. We'll get you in for the second half of the year and adjust your pricing accordingly. But that is really just an easy turnkey program. We call it the easy button. But you pick your products that you want to promote, and then we've got campaigns that we put together for you based on that budget, and then we kind of run with it for you. Just approve the artwork, and we take care of all the execution. We can do full custom planning. We have a lot of dealers that reach out that just want our support for certain campaigns, which works great. So if there's something that you want to focus on here as we go into summer, or even thinking ahead into fall, and you want some help putting together a campaign, let us know. The team will pull in Mariah and her team to help figure out what that right media mix is based on who you're trying to target, what you're trying to do with that campaign, and your local media mix. And Mariah mentioned this too, but we do have that social media program that if you haven't signed up for it yet, that's a really cost-effective way to stay in front of your customers through social media. So reach out to AGCO Direct, and then to just keep a lookout on the AGCO Direct portal. There's new toolkits and other assets that are loaded regularly. So a lot of different tools and resources available for you. But ultimately, if you have any questions, you want to get going on something, I would encourage you to reach out to your AGCO Direct rep, and they can get something together for you. All right, so with that, we are going to open it up for questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat box. Looks like we've got a couple here already, so we'll jump into those. First one is, when is the 2020 co-op utilization period 1 deadline? That is May 31st. The requirement is to utilize 35% of your funds, so that is fast approaching. The second one is, can dealers utilize necessary funds to be eligible for period 2 co-op utilization? We'll reach out to you and work through that with you. We really encourage you to use that 35% by this point in the year so that you are active in market, but we'll reach out to you offline and discuss that with you. Is the co-op spend utilization up to date? It is. The question is, like, when it comes to AGCO Direct, is it up to date? It's as up to date as it can be. A lot of times we're not able to run the billing until we have those final numbers in, so it might lag like 30 days behind, but otherwise the billing gets processed. We send claims in every Monday to get processed. If there is a specific dealer, this is coming from the AGCO field, if there's a specific dealer you want us to take a closer look at, let me know and we can dig into that for you. Next question is, you mentioned paid social a lot, Mariah. Does that include boosted posts?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think it depends on whatever scenario you're looking at. But boosted posts is a great way to enhance really any of those scenarios I walked through. It's very affordable. You often don't need to spend as much of your budget on boosted posts as ads. So yes, I think boosted posts were a part of that paid social budget.
Next question is, what about some of the newer spaces like advertising on podcasts, TikTok, Hulu?
Yes, great question. So a lot of those, I think of Snapchat, TikTok, Hulu, or streaming services are all really great places for advertising. However, scalability at this point and availability at a more local level is still not not available or not affordable. So we constantly keep our eye on some of those tactics to make sure, if they make sense, that we're making a part of your mix. But if I kind of go through them individually, TikTok skews very, very young. They're just now, and young I mean like 13 to about 21-ish. However, I feel, and I've been reading during this kind of pandemic time, TikTok has seen a definite surge in subscribers. But right now they currently don't allow open advertising, so they've just hand selected some brands or some larger brands that can advertise. However, very soon it will be open to a self-service model. But again, I think it skews a little young for what we're trying to, or who we're trying to generally reach. And then Snapchat, I think, is one of those that we have started recommending a little bit more. Again, that tends to skew a little bit younger, but not quite as young as TikTok. But we don't necessarily always see a real high engagement or click with those ads. So often what we recommend for Snapchat is looking at filters for your dealerships, or during a farm show, for example, and we've seen those get really high engagement and not as high as the ads. So we tend to skew more in that direction for Snapchat. And then if we look at streaming services like Hulu that run ads, so Hulu, Roku, Sling, those sorts of things, they are certainly gaining popularity. However, scalability tends to be a little bit of a problem. The CPMs are certainly higher, lower than actual television, higher than digital video you can purchase online now. Targeting is very granular, so that's one of the nice things, but minimums are often a problem. So right now with Hulu, for example, the minimum is still, I believe it's like 20 or 25,000. And there are services and networks that are opening up that to make it more affordable and more scalable, but we're still not quite there yet.
Okay, again, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the box. Zach has a really long question for us. Zach left. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and read this here. They're seeing a trend in farm equipment where everyone rushed to internet, social media, and now he's starting to see John Deere and Kubota go back to more radio and magazine. What do you think about running a marketing campaign focused heavily on online advertising versus a more balanced approach? Kind of thinking, at some point we'll eventually go back to traditional because online is trendy.
Yeah, and I think, and I hit on this, and I think Kaya hit on this too when we're looking at the trends. I think it's really important to have a mix. That media mix is not one medium tactic can do everything. So I think it's really important to constantly evaluate and optimize each of your campaigns as they're running to see what is working and what is driving your intended outcome. And, obviously the internet is not going away. And, everyone's first reaction to almost anything is to Google it. If you don't know, you Google it. And so I think it's, to Zach, I think to your point, there'll be a shift, I think, as it's constantly changing and it's constantly evolving. But I don't know that we'll ever go back to, 100% traditional. It's really, again, constantly looking and optimizing and seeing what's working for whatever you're trying to accomplish. And every area of the country, it's a little bit different. Not every dealership is the same. Not every region is the same. So it's really important to make sure that you can tailor your media plan and your media mix, again, based on where you're located, based on who you're trying to reach, and what you're trying to accomplish.
The next question is, I really like the message of having a diversified marketing campaign approach and mixing digital in with traditional. Is that the intention of the MVP program? And absolutely, that's the exact point of the MVP program. So we've done a lot of webinars where we've addressed the MVP program, so I didn't bring any slides in with that today. However, head out to the AGCO Direct website or reach out to your rep. But every single option or every track that we've laid out for MVP, regardless of the brand and product, includes traditional and digital, no matter what you sign up for that exact reason. I know Mariah says it all the time, like the best program you can do is do paid search and direct mail and then layer on paid social. Like if you're starting bare minimum, that mix, and I know some people are naysayers a little bit against direct mail, but when you take the traditional and layer it with the right digital, it can be really effective. And to Zach Loft's point, traditional is never going away, and there's going to be interest there, and same with digital. So it's finding the right way to marry the two together, and that was really the intention of the MVP program, so that we've got those campaigns set up for you guys right there. You just have to sign up, and we've got those media mixes kind of worked out for you. How do you measure success? Do you have industry data to know how we're performing against other industries, looking at ag, and then also power sports, automotive, et cetera?
Sure. That's a great question. So, yes, we do have the ability to or have benchmarks for different industries. And we also have the data with the dealers that we work with to be able to look at, how you're doing against some of your peers, or at least give you an idea of what to expect from what we've seen from other dealers. But in a perfect world, we like to get a baseline of activity for your specific dealership, and then use that as our benchmark, because industry averages, and everyone, and not just dealers, all of our clients like to know how they're performing against those industry benchmarks. And so we do try to provide that context, because it is important to understand what that looks like. But even more than that, again, looking year over year at how your dealership performed, or how a specific message performed that you ran maybe last year and are looking to run this year. It's really important to use your own benchmarks and use that to really define success, because everything in an industry is so, it's not as specific, and it's a very wide, like they're taking a lot of information that we don't know, creative, calls to action, where were they running, how long did it run, that we just don't have that information. So yes, we can provide that. However, again, we like to benchmark you against you.
Yeah, and just to kind of emphasize that, one example is paid search. So industry average on paid search, they always say 1% to 3% is a great campaign, right? Mm-hmm. The AGCO dealer campaigns that we run are typically in the 5 to 11% response rate, or click-through rate. So for us, 1 to 3%, I mean, if I see a campaign come through at 1.5%, I'm like, what's going on? Why is it so low? When, according to the quote-unquote industry averages, that would be, an acceptable result. So to Mariah's point, we look at past campaigns and past performance, and that's our benchmark, rather than looking at necessarily just industry. All right. Is there any conversation happening today or in the near future regarding more connection to entities like Machine Repeat, Fastline, Tractor House, etc.? How does AGCO Direct see these entities as a priority of list tactics to dealers? I would say there are some opportunities with each of them to some degree, but they are also, also not always open to collaborative efforts. Yeah. Is that the politically correct way to say it?
Yeah, and I think Kai is exactly right. Of course, there's opportunity with each of them, because they currently provide services that are a lot of dealers take advantage of, and I think each one we often will look at individually as, and I'll use Tractor House as an example. Their ability to target and report and be collaborative isn't always easy, So I think they're important, especially in the used equipment market. You know, we definitely understand that, but I would say on a case-by-case basis, we like to tailor whatever you're trying to accomplish, and then choose whichever one makes the most sense from a reach perspective. Because, for example, Fastline doesn't have as good of reach in the Southeast as it does in Central part of the United States. So, you know, a lot of that will depend on where you're located and what you're trying to accomplish. Lots of it depends answers today.
Favorite.
Yep.
All right, I think that's everything. So thank you guys for the great. Oh, we got one more that came in. We'll take this last one and then we'll wrap it up. Social media influencers. I can't talk. Social media influencers are very popular right now. Is AGCO doing anything to partner with social media influencers? Yeah, absolutely. So actually, there's been a lot in the works right now, discussions happening at a national level. I know there's some regional discussions. And influencers are tricky because it's hard to get monetary value applied to what they're offering. So we do a lot of research into that and a lot of discussions. I don't know that there's any that I can share at this point because they're in the works, but absolutely. I know in the past with both Millennial Farmer Zach up there in Minnesota and then Brian's Farm Video, there have been relationships with AGCO in the past. So there's others too that are being explored right now. If you have, you know, an influencer idea that you'd like us to explore for you, our team is actually right now working on essentially a scorecard so that we can help you evaluate if that is a good opportunity for you and if it makes the most sense and if you're going to get the right value back. All right. Well, thank you all very much. We had some great questions today. If you have any other questions, again, feel free to reach out to the AGCO Direct team, and we'll get this posted and up on YouTube as well so you guys can watch this or share this with anyone else at your dealership as well. So thank you much, and I hope everyone has a great holiday weekend.